Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're tackling something huge, a silent epidemic that's reshaping our world, anxiety. We're going to unpack the hidden forces that are dialing it up, one slide at a time. So let's just jump right in with the number that should honestly stop you in your tracks, 52%. That's how much anxiety disorders shot up among young people between 1990 and 2021, in just one generation. So the big question is, what on earth is going on? And this wasn't some slow and steady climb. If you look at the data, things were actually getting a little better back in the 90s. Then it started creeping up, slowly. But then between 2019 and 2021, bam, it just explodes. What happened in just those 2 years to cause a spike like that? All right, section 1, a rising tide of anxiety. So let's start digging into this. This rising tide, well, it isn't hitting everyone the same way. We've got to look closer at the data to see the patterns, who's being affected the most and where this problem is really showing up. Okay, so this huge global study, the Global Burden of Disease Study, it points to some really clear patterns. For one, females are showing higher rates of anxiety than males, and the group that saw the biggest jump, people in their early 20s, that 20 to 24 age range. And of course, there's that massive spike we just talked about. So why? Why are these specific groups so much more vulnerable? Okay, let's move on. Section 2, the global picture. So we know the who and the when, but the where is just as critical. To really get a handle on the regional differences, we need to talk about something called the socio-demographic index. So what is this SDI? Well, think of it as a kind of report card for a region's overall development. It's a single score that pulls together a bunch of different factors, things like income, how educated people are, and even fertility rates, to give us a quick snapshot. Now, this is where things get kind of counterintuitive. You'd probably guess that more developed, wealthier countries would have less anxiety, right? Well, the data actually flips that on its head. Yeah, middle-income regions have the highest raw number of cases, but it's the high-income, most developed places that saw the biggest increase, the fastest growth. So, what if? And the study also flagged a massive risk factor. And honestly, this one's tough to swallow. Bullying. It's responsible for nearly 15% of the entire disability burden from anxiety in young people. Just let that sink in for a second. That is a huge, measurable impact from a single, awful social pressure. And we're not just talking about a vague connection here. The study is pretty clear. Bullying is a significant risk factor. It shows a direct line from a specific social stressor to a real, measurable global health outcome, especially in areas already struggling. Okay, on to section 3, your city, your brain. So we've talked about global trends and social pressures, but what about the world that's literally right outside your window? It turns out that our immediate environment, how our cities are built, might be a huge piece of this puzzle. Just think about it for a second. If you live in a city, you're constantly dealing with stuff like heavy traffic, air pollution, all that noise. Well, research from the UK Biobank study actually shows a direct link. Higher rates of anxiety are found in people living right near major roads, who are just constantly bombarded by these environmental stressors. But there's a flip side of that coin, and it's a good one. That same study found that having access to nature, what they call green spaces like parks and blue spaces like coasts or rivers, can act like a shield. It's a buffer for our minds, and it's positively linked to better mental well-being. All right, section 4, nature meets nurture. This leads us right to that classic age-old question, doesn't it? Is it our environment, our nurture, that's causing this? Or is it something in our genes, our nature? Are we just born this way? For so long, this whole debate has been framed as this big battle, nature versus nurture. Are our mental health outcomes just hardwired into our DNA? Or are they purely a product of our life experiences and where we live? But what if that's the totally wrong way to even ask the question? Yeah, there's a really powerful way to think about this that helps make sense of the modern science. Our genes may load the gun, but our environment can pull the trigger. It's not one or the other, it's how they work together. So here's the key idea. It's all about the interaction. See, you might have a certain genetic predisposition for anxiety, but then you're exposed to a specific environment, maybe one with high pollution. That environment can then activate or amplify your genetic risk. It's this combination of the two that really influences your overall mental health. Okay, section 5, building healthier minds. So what does all this mean? If our environment has such a huge effect, what do we do with that information? How do we move forward? Well, the big picture is that we really need to start thinking differently. Mental health isn't just a personal problem you solve on your own. It's this complex interplay between huge global trends, the way we literally design our cities, and our own personal biology. It's all connected. So, if you're going to take anything away from this, here's what it should be. 1. Global anxiety is on the rise, and it's hitting young people especially hard. 2. Your local environment, everything from traffic to parks, it really, really matters. 3. Your unique genes are in a constant dance with that environment, and that all leads to the big one. Mental well-being is a massive public health challenge. And that leaves us with a final, and I think really important question to chew on. We put so much thought into engineering our cities for things like transportation and physical health. So, isn't it about time we started engineering them for our mental health too?